Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As our committee conducted oversight in the aftermath of the tragic DCA crash, I've noticed that the stories from FAA and the Army have gradually evolved over time. Specifically, my sense is that the information provided have come to resemble more of a telling of what should have happened rather than what actually happened. And I fear this pattern is yet another symptom of a complacent culture. For example, NTSB is now officially recommending that FAA and the Army engage in proactive data sharing. The lack of coordination between the FAA and the Army was on full display in May of last year when it was reported that the dedicated direct access line connecting the Pentagon Tower with the DCA Tower had not worked since 2022, meaning that for more than 1,000 days, not a single soul ever used the hotline directly connecting the DCA Tower and the Pentagon's Army heliport. Now, in the aftermath of this scandal, which itself occurred only months after the preventable deadly DCA crash, FAA issued statements downplaying the impact, implying that the inoperable hotline was really no big deal because, look, controllers could just, and I quote, call each other on the telephone. But FAA cannot hand-wave away the scandal because FAA's Deputy Chief Operating Officer publicly admitted that FAA had no idea that the dedicated hotline was not working for 3 years. FAA had no idea until another Army helicopter incident, less than 4 months after the DCA crash, forced 2 commercial flights to abort landings at DCA, meaning that after the tragedy of Flight 5342 civil-military collision, not one FAA employee thought, maybe we should test our direct communications line to the Army heliport from the DCA Tower. Chair Homendy, does the fact that the FAA's dedicated direct access line to the Pentagon was literally inoperable for years without anyone noticing serve as an apt metaphor for the sheer amount of work that must be done to improve communications between DOD and FAA?
That one's still under investigation by NTSB, but yes, I would agree with that.
Just yesterday, the FAA announced a 10-day temporary flight restriction in El Paso, then abruptly reversed it hours later. The conflicting reports that emerged do not inspire confidence that the FAA and DOD have improved their communications either with each other or within their own organizations. In fact, the FAA administrator yesterday, in response to the Chairman Cruz's question about what happened in El Paso, said that Secretary Duffy's tweet about drug cartel drones was absolutely correct, that they knew about the impending the request for closure of the airspace, but he did not know why FAA actually closed the airspace for 10 days. Chair Homendy, the DCA collision, and now we're hearing it's a party balloon that they shot down, so I'm still waiting to hear what's happening. But Chair Homendy, the DCA collision, the May Pentagon go-rounds, the B-52 incident in South Dakota, and now El Paso showcases a severe lack of coordination. What must change at the FAA and DOD to prevent future coordination failures? What is at risk if there is no improvement? And has NTSB been included in some of these meetings with and coordinations between FAA and DOD? Because they were keeping you out for a while there.
No, we are not part of that, but we would not necessarily be part of that, but FAA we can talk about separately because I do have some concerns there. Army actually worked really well with us. What we investigated was between the Army and the FAA, and there was no communication. I mean, the Army participated, the 12th Battalion participated in a helicopter working group that was formed by the tower because the tower was saying, hey, we've got a serious safety issue here and nobody's doing anything about it. Let's try to coordinate. But Army wasn't asking for data. They had their own safety management system problems, and there was lack of coordination. Look, I'm going to tell you, I worked 15 years on Capitol Hill, and we talk about this all the time. When you go to an agency, the lack of communication, even within a large agency and between agencies, is terrible. I don't understand it. People can't talk. It's astounding to me. But it's not surprising from what we've seen from the investigation.
Would it be safe to presume that you would support Congress elevating the NTSB recommendations following the DCA midair collision into a statutory requirement?
Yes, and you can do that simply by requiring the entities to adopt the recommendations and reference our report. without actually having to do language everywhere. What I will say, though, is we shouldn't wait to move the provisions in the Rotor Act. This isn't a wait on Rotor, move this legislation. This is a yes and. Congress can move many pieces of legislation every day. So it's a yes and.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.